There was a time when Sean Combs was everywhere. His music was on every radio. His name was on champagne bottles, clothing lines, and television shows. His parties were the parties that every famous person wanted to be invited to. If you were in the entertainment world in the late 1990s and early 2000s, getting close to Diddy meant you had made it. He built one of the most impressive empires in the history of American music, from almost nothing. With pure hustle, sharp instincts, and an ability to spot talent that almost nobody could match. And then, in 2024, the whole thing came crashing down. This is the story of Sean Combs, the rise, the warning signs that many people ignored for a very long time, and the collapse that shocked an industry, but perhaps should not have shocked anyone at all. Sean John Combs was born in New York City in 1969. His childhood was not easy. When Sean was just 2 years old, his father was shot and killed in Central Park. His mother, Janice, raised him alone in Harlem and later in the suburbs of New York. She worked multiple jobs to give her son a better life. By all accounts, she worked incredibly hard, and her son watched that and learned something important, that hard work, relentless and focused, could change your circumstances. As a teenager, Sean was ambitious in a way that stood out. He was sharp, he was confident. He had energy that filled a room. He got a job as an intern at a music label called Uptown Records while he was still a college student. He was not paid much, but he showed up every single day and worked harder than anyone around him. He learned the business from the inside. He watched how hits were made. He understood what audiences wanted before they knew they wanted it. He was fired from Uptown Records eventually. Different sources tell slightly different stories about why. But what happened next is the part that became legend. He started his own record label. Bad Boy Records launched in 1993. And almost immediately it became something special. Combs, who by now was going by the name Puffy, and later Puff Daddy and later still Diddy, had an extraordinary ear for talent and an even more extraordinary ability to package that talent for the widest possible audience. He took the gritty energy of New York hip-hop and polished it, made it accessible, made it aspirational, made it feel like success. His first major signing was a young rapper from Brooklyn named Christopher Wallace. The world would come to know him as the Notorious B.I.G, Biggie Smalls. Biggie was, by almost universal agreement, one of the greatest rappers who ever lived. His storytelling was vivid and cinematic. His flow was effortless. His ability to make listeners feel both the struggle and the glory of street life was unlike anything the music world had heard before. Together, Combs and Biggie were unstoppable. The records they made together sold millions of copies. Bad Boy became the hottest label in America. Song after song went to the top of the charts. And then, in March 1997, Christopher Wallace was shot and killed in Los Angeles. He was 24 years old. The murder was never solved. The loss devastated Combs publicly and visibly. He released a tribute song called "I'll Be Missing You," built around a sample from a classic Police song, and it became one of the best-selling singles of that entire year. Millions of people who had never listened to hip-hop before cried listening to it. The tragedy made Combs more famous than ever, and it also marked something important. Biggie had been the artistic heart of Bad Boy. Without him, the label would have to find a new direction. What Combs did next showed exactly who he was as a businessman. He did not slow down. He did not grieve quietly and step back. He expanded. He launched a clothing line called Sean John. He created his own vodka brand and later acquired a champagne brand called Ciroc, turning it into one of the best-selling premium spirits in America through sheer force of marketing. He produced television shows. He invested in media companies. He put his name on fragrances, on restaurants, on hotels. He became a figure who represented something very specific in American culture. The idea that a black man from Harlem with no family money and no inherited connections could build a business empire through talent and willpower alone. That story was real. And it was genuinely inspiring to millions of people. His parties became famous worldwide. The White Party, his annual summer event in the Hamptons, was one of the most exclusive gatherings in America. Celebrities flew in from around the world. The guest lists read like a who's who of music, film, sports, and politics. Being invited meant you had arrived. At his peak, Forbes estimated his net worth at over $1 billion. He was one of the richest figures in the entire music industry. He had done what almost nobody does. He had turned fame into a lasting business. But there were signs. There were always signs. For years, stories circulated in the entertainment industry about Combs's behavior behind closed doors, about a controlling temper, about how people who worked for him lived in a state of fear, about parties that went further than parties should go, about young people, especially young women, who entered his world and came out changed, or did not come out at all, or stayed quiet about what they had experienced for reasons that were not difficult to understand. In 1999, Combs was in a nightclub in New York when a shooting occurred. His then-girlfriend Jennifer Lopez and his associate Shine were present. Combs was charged with weapons possession and bribery. He was acquitted at trial. Shine went to prison for 9 years. The episode raised questions about Combs and the people around him that were never fully answered. In the years that followed, several women made accusations against him. Some civil lawsuits were filed. Most were settled quietly. Money changed hands. Silence was purchased, and Combs continued building his empire. This is the pattern, not unique to Combs. Seen again and again with powerful men throughout history. Accusations come, lawyers arrive, settlements happen, non-disclosure agreements get signed. The famous person goes back to their famous life, and the people who were hurt either stay silent or are simply not believed. In November 2023, a woman named Cassie Ventura filed a lawsuit against Combs. Cassie was a singer and model who had been in a long relationship with Combs. Her lawsuit described years of physical abuse, sexual assault, and deeply controlling behavior. It described a man who used his wealth and power to dominate and intimidate the people closest to him. The details were specific. The descriptions were harrowing. Combs denied everything. His lawyers called the claims false and said the lawsuit was an attempt to extract money. 1 day later, the lawsuit was settled. The terms were not made public. Cassie said nothing further publicly at that time, but the lawsuit had cracked something open. Other accusers began to come forward. More lawsuits were filed. Former employees, former associates, former guests at his famous parties began telling stories that painted a very different picture of the man the world thought it knew. Then, in May 2024, a hotel security video from 2016 became public. It showed Combs physically assaulting Cassie in a hotel hallway, grabbing her, throwing her, dragging her. The video was silent, but the violence was unmistakable. The reaction was immediate and enormous. Combs released a public apology video. He said he was disgusted with himself. He said he had sought treatment. He said he was a different person now. It did not matter. The video had shown what words had been hiding for years. In September 2024, federal agents arrested Sean Combs in New York City. He was charged with serious federal crimes, sex trafficking, racketeering, and the running of what prosecutors described as a criminal enterprise that had operated for decades. The indictment described coercion, violence, and the systematic abuse of power over many years and across many states. Combs pleaded not guilty. His lawyers argued the charges were exaggerated and politically motivated. He was denied bail and placed in a federal detention facility in Brooklyn. The music industry, which had tolerated whispers and rumors for 30 years, suddenly had nowhere to hide. Streaming platforms quietly removed his name from promotional materials. Business partners distanced themselves overnight. People who had attended his famous parties and celebrated his success began carefully crafting statements that explained how little they had really known him. The rise of Sean Combs is a genuinely remarkable American story. A boy from Harlem with no advantages who built a billion-dollar empire through talent and relentless effort. That part is real, and it deserves to be acknowledged. But the collapse of Sean Combs tells a different story. It tells the story of what happens when fame and money and power remove all the normal checks that exist to keep people accountable. When every accusation can be made to disappear with a check. When everyone around you depends on your success for their own. When an entire industry decides that what is happening behind closed doors is none of its business. The warning signs were there for 30 years. Women said so. Lawsuits said so. The people who worked for him and were afraid to say so publicly said so quietly to anyone who would listen. The empire did not collapse because the truth suddenly appeared. The truth had been there for a long time. The empire collapsed because this time the video existed, and some truths are too visible to settle out of court.